Pastor Steve Talmage of Love of Christ Lutheran Church, and each week Pastor Nanette Christofferson and I try to provide a brief introduction to an upcoming Bible reading assigned for Sunday. We're going to take a look at the Old Testament reading for Sunday, February 19th, 2023. This is Transfiguration Sunday, the last Sunday of the Epiphany season. So, leading into our lesson, it's in the context when you look at an outline of the book of Exodus, 19:1 to 40:38. This is when the Israelites have experienced the Passover event in Egypt, and they've crossed the Red Sea. They've sent out exploratory team to see if they can quickly move to the Promised Land. That doesn't happen, so they end up wandering in the wilderness for 40 years to be prepared to go into the Promised Land. So Israel's at Sinai. Israel's around Mount Sinai in the wilderness area. The Zondervan Handbook of the Bible says, the crossing of the sea has happened. The people are in the desert. In the desert, people are soon thirsty and hungry and mutinous. It is not long before the complaints start. There had been plenty of fish, fruits, and vegetables to eat back in Egypt, and no shortage of water because they were in the Nile Delta area, so plenty of water there. Here, God will provide in a way that teaches His people obedience and daily dependence on Him. And that's really, as we go through wilderness experiences, there are opportunities out of the experience of lack or sense that we don't have what we need, that we discover that God is there to provide for us. Maybe not exactly how we want it to be provided, but God provides. In Exodus chapters 20 to 24, we get the Ten Commandments and all the code of laws. And the whole legal system of Judaism is going to evolve and come out of what we're reading here. In the beginning, God spoke the words of life, and now God speaks the words for living. Okay, so God breathed, and creation happened, humans happened, life happened, and now God is speaking directly to Moses, to the people, and it's how are we to live? How do we live in relationship with God, with each other, with our neighbors? God's covenant, the Ten Commandments, set out how God's people are to ethically and morally live in relationship. And I think that's important. Again, and we know the struggle. When we hear law, we hear something to be afraid of or something that's going to be used to curb us in or curtail our behavior. And in some sense, that's true. But the idea here is to see this as a gift. We don't have to guess. We don't have to wonder how a right life can go. God makes it very clear how a right life with God, with family, with neighbor, with community can go. The commandments' sole purpose are summarized by Jesus later on in the New Testament when we hear Jesus say, all the laws that come out of these 10, out of the evolution of the Jewish legal system, we are to love God, love our neighbor, and love ourselves as a reflection of God's love loose in the world. That's why these commandments were given, not to just kind of corral us in, but to release us to reflect how God intends all humans to live with each other and to live with God. Exodus 24, at the beginning, it's the sealing of the covenant. So we have the people's assent to the covenant is formally sealed by a special sacrifice. Again, we're talking about a culture 3,200 years ago, 3,300 years ago, and there are religious practices that involve animal sacrifices and other kinds of sacrifices, and all those are physical actions to memorialize agreements that are being made with the gods, being made with neighboring tribes, whatever. And so here they assent, they say we're going to do it, it's sealed, and then by the covenant, then they have a meal that's eaten by their representatives in the presence of God. There's blood sprinkled on the people and on the altar, and it unites God and the people of Israel into this agreement, this binding agreement of God will be their God and they will be God's people, and God's going to give them the promised land. In effect, each is swearing to keep it on pain of death. That's why we have the sacrifice of an animal. That's why there's blood here. It's all tied into this is life and death right now. 9 to 18 of chapter 24, the Lord's glory is revealed. Moses went up to Mount Sinai with his brother Aaron, Aaron's sons, and 70 elders of Israel. As you read through the book, you see things get organized, and there's leaders of groups of people. They see some manifestation of God, and surprisingly, they were not consumed by the glory of God, but were allowed to feast in God's presence. In some of the readings in the scriptures, anyone who sees God will die. But in this case, they see some form, some manifestation of God. They're able to be and actually feast in the presence of God without, being fully consumed and killed. 12 to 13, the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there, and I'll give you the tablets of stone with the law and the commandment, which I've written for their instruction." So Moses set out with his assistant, Joshua, and Moses went up into the mountain of God. Sometimes we think that Moses just went by himself, but Joshua is a key player because as we read the scriptures, Joshua is going to be the one who leads the people of God into the promised land because of his faithfulness, because of his trust in God. So he's there. They moved from Aaron and his sons and the elders of the tribes, and they go further up on the mountain and they wait to get the tablets of stone, which the Ten Commandments will contain. Verse 14, to the elders, Moses says, "Wait here for us until we come to you again, for Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a dispute may go to them." So he designates who's in charge. These are my trusted assistants. They have the authority to navigate and lead whatever issues might come until we come back. All right? Doesn't sound like that's a problem. Well, then we have Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. The glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days. And on the 7th day, he called to Moses out of the cloud. Again, when we're dealing with numbers, we have a link here to new creation. We have a link here to something new being offered and developed by God. 6 days of creation, 7th day, God completes everything and rests and declares this is all very good. Here, the cloud is there, and on the 7th day, God is ready to reveal to Moses what it is that Moses needs to bring to the people of God. 17. Now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. Again, how do you describe the undescribable or indescribable? The image of fire, of smoke, of cloud are all used for the mysterious presence and power of God. And so here the people are watching up at the mountain. They see these kind of natural meteorological phenomena going on. Something powerful's happening. Then Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. We kind of have repetition here of going up the mountain, into the mountain. Again, they're trying to describe that. They're trying to describe what is really hard to describe, is probably impossible to describe. Then we have this phrase, Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Again, 40 in the Old Testament, in the Bible, reflects a long period of time. We don't want to get so literal that we're hung up on having a calendar marking the days, but Moses was up there a long time. And he's in the cloud. He's in the mysterious presence of God. And if we read after our lesson, 25 to 31, we see why he's up there so long. He's getting detailed instructions, not just the Ten Commandments, but detailed instructions on building the tabernacle, which will be that portable structure to gather the people in worship, and it will contain the Ark of the Covenant that's going to hold the tablet of the Ten Commandments. and other holy relics for the people of God. And I just put an illustration of what that might have looked like. But 25 to 31 tell you exactly how this tabernacle is supposed to be built, look like, the measurements and everything. So a lot of attention is paid here. Well, if we went further into Exodus 32, verse 1, trouble is back in the camp. And this is going to be an age-old reflection of how difficult it is for God in initiating a covenant, in people swearing to a covenant, in keeping the covenant. Even though God will always keep God's covenant, the people struggle because they just can't wait. They can't trust that God's going to be faithful. And so in verse 1 of chapter 32, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us. Who shall go before us? As for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." That 40-day period is a long period of time to not have your key leader, right? And we don't know if 40 is actually 40, but it's a long period of time, enough to make the community of folks who've been delivered out of exile, delivered out of slavery, to become extremely anxious and fearful because they're in the wilderness. And they recognize that, when they needed food to eat, when they needed water, it was Moses they came to, and Moses, called upon God, and God delivered. And notice they say, "Come, make gods for us." This evolution of monotheism, or belief in one God, is a process. It's not like instantaneously the people of Israel believed in just one God. There's plenty of references in the Old Testaments of folks trying to come to grips with this understanding that there is only one God, because they come out of a culture where everything seems to be linked to some kind of deity, particularly around fertility of crops, fertility of livestock, fertility of family, when it comes to fighting wars, when it comes to famine and feast, all of that. And so when you hear, "Come make gods for us," they came out of Egypt where there was polytheism, and they're thinking that we need to have as many gods on our side as we're living in a wilderness, in a dangerous place, in a desert. And sadly, they do. They kind of pass the offering plate, and everyone that's got gold jewelry, which some may be saying, "Where'd they get gold jewelry? They were slaves in Egypt." Good question. Don't know the answer. But anyhow, they concoct and create this golden calf that becomes emblematic or symbolic of the lack of faith and trust that the people of Israel have. And because of that, instead of 40 days of Moses being on the mountain, they're going to spend 40 years in the wilderness before they're going to be allowed to enter into the promised land. And even then, when they get there, they're going to continue to struggle to turn their eyes to God and away from other gods that are around them. And maybe in some ways we do too. So as we go into Transfiguration Sunday, this Old Testament reading is linked to Jesus taking Peter, James, and John up to a mountain. There's a cloud, God appears, Elijah and Moses are there. That's why this reading is here. But it's also a good little reminder of the challenge and the struggle of God bringing God's people out of slavery into the promised land, and the age-old challenge of having no other gods and trusting God, particularly when we're in a time of wilderness. God bless you as you prepare for Transfiguration Sunday. Thanks for watching this.